Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our monthly live Q&A session. We are 3 minutes late. Sorry about that. We are streaming live on Facebook and Instagram this morning, in addition to our standard YouTube stream. So I had more buttons to press.
This is our first test of live streaming to all of these places. So
We're, we've been doing a Black Friday live stream for the last, however many years, and we're going to be doing that again. And this year we wanted to do it to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And so it's not too hard on our end, but it just took a little bit of figuring it out and all that kind of stuff. But I think the team here is sort of getting everything lined out and getting questions all in the queue. I see Steph has her document open. So on the back side here, we've also got the rest of the team for the most part. We've got Chad. He's going to be in the support answering questions, more technical questions, as will Ira and Nicholas. And Morgan, our installations manager, she's also in the chat, and she's going to be fielding some of those questions and sending them over to Steph so that Steph can answer or ask those for me, and I can answer, and then we can kind of chat through those back and forth a little bit. Grace is on vacation today, so she won't have any. We won't have any help sharing the YouTube videos. So if anybody in the audience wants to be looking up videos and help us out with that, I'll try to call them out specifically. And if you guys just know what videos we have and stuff like that, then feel free to put them in the chat, and you should be able to do that. So I think that's pretty much the intros. We'll try to get right into this. Do you have anything else before we talk about our kind of promo for today?
no, that's it.
So our promo today, the thing we're going to try to push to you guys is we're coming up on the end of the year, and we're readjusting our prices specifically on installations and our kits. So price of copper has gone up this year, as like most things have, not like as in years past, but our kits have gotten more expensive on our side. So we're going to have to raise our prices for next year. And that means for installations, if you want to get your system installed by us here at Explore Us Life, you can lock in your prices for parts and components if you schedule through the end of this year. So you can get on the schedule for 2025, and you'll lock in your 2024 prices. And basically what that means is we just, you just pay for your parts, and we basically set all that stuff aside so that you're locking in at, 2024 prices instead of 2025. We don't get Victron prices in advance. They do quarterly price adjustments, whether up or down. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. But yeah, our kit prices, we kind of can anticipate those going up a little bit. So how much are they going up? Like ballpark?
Ballpark about 3 to 5%.
So, I mean, it might not be like a life-changing amount saved, but I mean,
It's still significant when you're talking about a full system that might cost $10,000.
yeah, I mean, 5% on $10,000, that's what?
$500.
$500. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a fair amount.
That's a pretty big amount.
That's not insignificant for sure.
Yeah. Also on installations, we are booking, like Nate said, we're booking into 2025 now. Our last slot of 2024 is currently pending. So we, at the moment, we don't have any available spots unless this one that's pending falls through or another one cancels. But we don't have any more through 2024. Our first available slot in 2025 will be towards the end of February, mid to end of February. We kind of close our installation shop for the winter because our installation shop is in Oregon, and we don't want our installers freezing outside.
Yeah, and we also don't want y'all driving to our installer's place.
True.
on their road in your big 45-foot long toy hauler. So could be kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that. That's our sales pitch for today. Let's get into the questions.
Cool. All right. We'll start with one from the YouTube community chat. And just throwing it out there too, we are taking questions in the YouTube chat, and we're also taking questions on Facebook and Instagram. I believe Ira is going to be fielding all of those questions and adding them to my queue. So if you don't see the question in the YouTube chat, that's why we're pulling them from various spots.
Yep.
So from the community post from yesterday, I'm going to be starting my Sprinter build next year, and I'm somewhat set on my electrical system. Excuse me. I'd like to have at least some kind of electrical power from the beginning of my build so that I can test different components along the way. My question is, should I purchase a complete system at the beginning or just a bare basic system for testing? My thoughts are that buying a complete system might save some money by bundling, but if my build takes 2 years or longer, would I be unnecessarily aging my system, specifically batteries?
That's a good question. I would be curious on what parts and components you're needing to test. If you're buying new components, those components should work. And if they don't, then I'm sure they're covered under some kind of warranty. I would say get your electrical system all at one time. I mean, you can install your max air fan and your puck lights and that kind of stuff, but you can sort of fabricable a solution together for those really, really small loads, like a Jackery or something like that, just to a little fuse block or something like that. But, I think I'm the kind of person who, if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to spend, the 2 weeks it takes to install a DIY electrical system, I'm just going to do it right the first time. That way I don't have to do it again. Yeah. Yeah.
My counter argument to, you said, what would you need to be bench testing? I would say, like a max air fan or an air conditioner before you mount it on the roof. You'd want to bench test that for sure.
Yeah, I guess that's true. An air conditioner. And you could get batteries sort of ahead of time, I guess. I think that's kind of a tough situation whenever your build's going to take multiple years. When you spread things out that long, you're going to run into problems. I think that's with anything. I think that's with a van build, a house, a project car. Like when you start stretching things out over a period of time, like things are going to start wearing out and breaking before the project is actually finished.
That's fair.
So,
I think I'd still agree with you that going ahead and doing the full electrical system to begin with would make sense.
Yeah, just get it done.
Yeah. Cool. Next question. Do I need a 20 amp wall power socket in my kitchen galley if I am planning on using a microwave and hairdryer sporadically, or is 15 amp fine?
So your standard outlet in your wall, like at your house or something like that, that is two 15 amp outlets that can be fed by a 20 amp breaker, given you're using 12 gauge wire. And so, if you're trying to do, what were the two components?
A microwave and a hairdryer.
A microwave and a hairdryer.
Probably not at the same time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like if you're going to do one or the other, you can install a single 15, but pretty much it's been a while since I've seen a single 15 amp outlet. Mm-hmm. Duplex outlets with, two 15 amp outlets on it. That's kind of the standard. And if you install one of those, then you can use your hairdryer and your microwave, but you just can't use it at the same time. Right. The same as you couldn't use it at the same time in your house. It's just going to trip a breaker. It's too much for that whole circuit. So you're going to have to just take turns. You can't microwave and run the hairdryer off the same, duplex outlet at the same time. Yeah. And your inverter might not be able to handle that, depending on the size of the inverter. Those are two pretty heavy loads.
Yeah, cool. James Clark asked, can you stack MPPTs with two different sized panels onto a bus bar?
Two different MPPTs, each having their own size of solar panels. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you're doing multiple solar charge controllers, each solar array is considered to be totally separate and independent. So you could use 100-watt solar panels on one charge controller and 200-watt solar panels on the other charge controller, both to your Lynx distributor. And, that's going to be perfect. That's actually the perfect way to do that. That's ideal. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. JC asked, when traveling with a 12-volt refrigerator from place to place using a Victron DC to DC charger, 121218, Would that be sufficient to keep the batteries charged, supporting the 12-volt refrigerator? And actually, it looks like Chad answered that and said to check out the power audit calculator to determine how much charging power you'll need to support your loads.
Yeah, I would say that's correct. I mean, the super quick answer is probably.
Yeah.
18 amps is likely going to supply plenty of power to your refrigerator, and also charge your batteries when the air conditioner, the refrigerator is not actively running, because it cycles on and off. Right. But yeah, I think going through the power audit, going through those videos that we made earlier this year about how much power do various things take, I think that's the direction that you should go there. So if you go to our youtube.com/ExploreUsLife or whatever it is, and then go to, I think it's chapter 2 of our currently ongoing academy. It'll have everything you want to know and more about sizing a system.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Starling wants to know your thoughts on an SOK battery versus an EG4 battery.
I don't have much of a thought or an opinion about those two. We don't do battery reviews on this channel. There's 2,000 different battery brands on the market, and it's impossible for us to be experts in all of them. So, look around at some of the other channels. That Will Prowse does a great job on reviews. Go check out his channel if you want like battery reviews and teardowns and stuff like that. I think the brand of battery is a little less important than the wires and the fusing and the lugs and the quality of the installation that you do and everything like that, like you see on this channel. So,
yep, cool. Steve asked, are there any drawbacks to using the AC out 2 port of a MultiPlus 3000 to operate a 15 amp 120 volt heater element in my water heater? I only need it to work when the camper is plugged into 120 volt.
I don't do that because it requires a secondary breaker box. It needs a second breaker box, or you could use the other side, quote unquote, from our breaker boxes that we have in our store. But AC out 2, it's not protected. You still need breakers and all that kind of stuff. So it's just simpler if you use AC output 1, run it to your breaker box, and then, turn your heater off whenever you're not plugged into shore power. Just take a little bit of like due diligence there and turn that off. I mean, can what you're doing, will it work? Yeah, but you're going to have to do some additional work. It's not as straightforward as it sounds.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Danny asked 2 questions. Do I need a separate alternator for... Do I need a separate alternator for the system I bought? What size alternator? I have a 12 volt, 800 watt solar, 3K Victron inverter with our full kit with 4 batteries, so the Explore bundle. Yeah,
so the Explore bundle. No, you don't need a secondary alternator on it, or you don't need a secondary alternator on any of our systems. Our systems will work with like factory, like OEM secondary alternators, like the Transit has. I think Sprinters may have it too. I don't know, but none of our systems like need that secondary alternator. As long as you have enough alternator charging capacity, which pretty much any modern vehicle does, it's going to be fine, because we use DC to DC chargers in our system. So, in short, no, you don't need it.
Cool. Grumpy Old Camper asked, I'd love to see a guide about terminology. I used your MultiPlus guide for setting up with Battleborn batteries, but I've changed to using batteries from another company, and they use different terms.
So if you go to youtube.com/ExploreUsLife, we're going to screen share real quick, head over into our videos, and then scroll back a bit. So, our academy is currently going on, and so we've got all these educational resources right here. And I would say that if you watch these first couple videos, volts, amps, and watts explained, and basic solar parts explained, and maybe even basic electrical formulas and calculations, if you watch those 3, it's pretty much going to get you headed in the right direction on terminology. And if there's any specific terms like that, we didn't really cover in that, and it's like sort of affecting your Explorers Life like installation, reach out at shop.explorers.life and we can get you pointed in the right direction, or reach out to whoever, whichever battery manufacturer or whatever component manufacturer is using the weird terminology. So, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Cool. Dennis asked, I have a question regarding the Victron Multiplus. Is there a way to get around the Multiplus tripping the 20 amp GFCI at my house?
No, nope, not really. So the problem with that is the rate of which the neutral to ground bond relay activates is too slow for a GFCI outlet. Basically,
Yeah.
the GFCI outlet, it registers that fault within, I think it's like, was it 5 milliseconds? It's real fast, or maybe it's 3 milliseconds. And then the Multiplus takes 5 milliseconds for that neutral to ground bond relay to open whenever it gets connected to shore power. And it's just an inherent problem with GFCI outlets. Now, if you have a GFCI breaker that's protecting a non-GFCI outlet, it might work. That could kind of be the workaround to keep a GFCI protected circuit there, is to use a breaker in the breaker box instead of the GFCI outlet. But yeah, then you're rewiring stuff in your breaker box, and yeah, I can't necessarily, for liability's sake, recommend that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so the workaround would be to plug it into a non-GFCI outlet.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just an inherent problem with the timing of GFCI outlets, because Victron's a European company. They're out of the Netherlands, and their GFCI outlets, they trip at a different speed than GFCI outlets here in the US. So it's just what it is.
Weird problem.
Yeah, weird problem. Yeah, don't use don't plug into GFCI outlets. That's the only workaround.
Cool. Joe asked, I have a Lifetime 12 volt, 280 amp hour battery, 60 amp controller. What bus bar can I use? I have 900 watts of solar.
Links distributor for everything. Basically without question.
Yeah, Nicholas also answered that, put links distributor and linked to that in our shop.
Yeah, so, we got them in our store. Every single tutorial that you find on the Explorers Life YouTube channel at this point, if you've watched any of our videos, which I feel like you probably watched our videos if you're tuning into a live stream on our YouTube channel, they all use the links distributor. And the reason is because it's so simple, it's so easy, and it gets rid of 99% of fusing problems that we see whenever we go to events and we fix people's systems. So, yeah.
Cool. Brad asked, I have a Victron Multiplus 2000. AC1 from the generator is only putting through 5 amps when it should be 50 amps. Any idea? I've done all of these software updates.
That one's going to take a little bit more like troubleshooting. Well, just take a look at your system. If you've purchased that unit through us, reach out at shop.explorers.life/support, and we can take a little better look at it. I've got a troubleshooting guidebook that we can kind of work through those problems with.
Yeah, cool.
That'd be a reach out kind of thing, because there could be 40 different problems that could be causing that some of them big, some of them small.
Yes. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name because I will butcher it. What are your thoughts on the new GUI 3.5 firmware released for the Victron GX displays? Are you planning to do a review?
I might do a review later in the academy once we get to communications, because we got like a monitoring and communications section. I think the new graphical user interface is great. I think it looks nice. I think it functions a little better than the old one. I've been using that new look for, let's call it a year at this point, I guess, off and on. I've been switching back and forth because whenever it was in its beta mode, it wasn't, it still had bugs, which that's what a beta mode is things still have problems. But if they got all the problems like solved, and like, I like the way the new one functions, it looks a little more modern, a little more up to date. So yeah, I think it's great. I like the fact that you can switch back and forth though. I don't know if they're going to get rid of the old one, But as of today, in the settings, you can switch back and forth between the new one and the old one. So you can kind of pick and choose whichever one you like and just play around with it. So, yeah.
Cool. Switzerland asked, is 95 millimeter wire okay for a 48 volt Quattro 5K, 3 meters of cable, and 95 millimeter squared is 4-aught wire?
4-aught for a what? Sorry,
For
that was a lot of numbers.
A 48 volt Quattro 5K.
Quattro 5.
Let's see. You just did.
I actually literally just wrote this down this morning. This is in your user manual, but I will look it up.
Yeah, I believe that's oversized just off of memory.
Here it is. Okay, what was it? 48 volt 5K?
5K.
That's 2-aught.
That should be 2-aught. Okay.
Yeah. 2-aught is in the user manual, which is 70
millimeter.
millimeters squared. Yeah. Yeah. And if you want wire sizes for Victron inverter chargers, it's in the user manual.
Yep.
It's
on like page 3, I think.
Yeah, if you pull up the user manual, and I always do like a Control F search for fuse, and it brings up because if you do Control F for wire, it's 500 entries. But if you do Control F for fuse, it's going to bring you to a table that's got the fuse and wire size recommendations for all of the multipluses in each of their respective user manual. Yep.
Cool. Okay. Lost my spot. Okay. Wrinkly Nomads asked, I have a 460 amp hour lithium battery, max draw 250 amp. What size fuse should I be using?
So your fuse size is dependent on what loads that you're going to be powering from that. So like if you've got a system with a multi-plus 3K and you're using 4-aught wire, you're going to need a 400 amp fuse, and let's see. So if you go to shop.explorers.life, let's just open that up real quick. Screen share. If you go to shop.explorers.life, shop electrical systems, and then build your own electrical kit. You've got all these different options for various use cases of various kits. And each one of these is going to have all of the proper wires and all the proper fuses and all the proper lugs and all the proper heat shrink and all the proper mounting screws. We got it all figured out for you. So, if you've got a 400 plus amp hour battery, and you've got a van, you're going to be in this Explore realm, because this is this particular line of systems. The Explorer line of systems features the multi-plus 3K, so nearly 3,000 watts of inverting power. And that's realistically what you're going to need there. So check that out.
I think actually, wouldn't that be the light, since it's a max draw of 250?
I got a little caveat there, don't?
Yeah,
it's a little underdrawed. Yeah, so you're probably going to need the Explorer Lite, because that battery BMS is a little underpowered. You can't draw quite enough power for the multi-plus 3K. So usually it's like minimum of 400 amp hours, minimum of 200 amp hours, but whenever you've got a BMS that's a little undersized, then you may have to downsize that a little bit. So yeah, it's right here. If you need help like picking that out, hit us up at shop.explorers.life/support, and we can help out, get you pointed in the right direction with the right link to whatever you've got going on.
Cool. Kevin asked, I have a Victron in my Transit. I have a 12-1230 DC to DC charger and want to add a 12-1250. Should I upgrade the existing 6 gauge and run both on a new 1 gauge, or run a second set of 4 gauge for the new 12-1250?
So going to add a 50 amp?
Adding.
So if you're just going to add a new, like, you can leave the pre-existing wire as is for your 30 amp charger, and then you're just going to run a new set of wire for your 50 amp DC to DC charger.
Yep.
So same kind of situation there. If you go to shop, wiring kits, component wiring kits. Component wiring kits is all of our wiring kits for specific components. The DC to DC charger, the 50 amp DC to DC charger is on page 2, just because I navigate to it every day.
Yeah, or you can filter by alternator charging.
Yeah, over here on the left. So our website's going a little slow because we're streaming as well. But here's the wiring kit right here, for the 12-1250, and that's going to give you enough wire to wire in your new 50 amp charger. So yeah, I wouldn't do a single run and then branch off of that. One, because it's kind of complicated. Two, because we don't have a kit for that. It's just easier if you use the kit.
Yeah. And 1 gauge wire won't fit into either of those units.
True. Very true.
Okay, this question is from Instagram. How do you feel about the EG4 solar AC system?
I'm not very familiar with EG4 components at this time. There's 100 different brands of components on the market, and I kind of like to focus in on, as of right now, realistically just Victron at the moment. We'd like to expand out into different brands later on, but it just takes time.
It does. Yep.
Yeah, and to become an expert in every brand is just not feasible. And we don't carry anything in our store that we're not an expert in. So, yes. We could just plop a bunch of inverters in the store and I wouldn't be an expert in, and I don't think that's fair to any of our customers. So I'd rather we have to be an expert in anything that we sell. So, yeah. So I don't really know much about EG4 components in general.
Well, the next question is also about EG4. It actually has nothing to do really with the brand. But Charles asked, would the EG4 48-volt rack batteries be a better setup than the 4 12-volt Epoch batteries wired in series? And Nicholas did answer this. For a 48-volt system, 48-volt batteries would be simpler.
Yeah, Nicholas is totally right there. It's so much easier in that regard. Pretty much with no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yep. Okay. Project Trawler asked, what is the largest gauge wire that you can put into a Lynx distributor? Oh, Nicholas also answered that one. 4-aught wire is the largest that will go into that.
Yeah, 4-aught, but the lugs that we have in our store, we guarantee to fit. There are some 4-aught lugs out there that don't fit. Amazon has 50 different brands of lugs, and it's hit or miss on if they fit or not. They're too long. They'll hit the fuses or they'll hit the sides of the Lynx distributor on the way out. So our wiring kits have all the proper lug sizes.
Yeah.
I'm being really salesy today. Sorry, guys. We just have so many solutions.
We do. Well, here's one that we haven't gotten in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What's your opinion on the plug-and-play EcoFlow power kits?
Last month, let's see, Morgan and Grace and Steph filtered out all of the questions that we got on those. They didn't let me answer any of those.
Yeah, it seems like every live stream, every event that we go to, every time we're interacting with a bunch of different people, we get questions on this. So sometimes we do filter these out because it's it's the same answer over and over and over. And if you've watched any of our videos, you pretty much already know our stance on it, but yeah, go for it.
Okay, so portable power units are great for a chuck it in the truck and go kind of situation where you can just charge it up, and if you run out of power, it's not a big deal. For a permanently installed situation, I don't like them. Comparing a portable power unit to a system like we have on our store and what we teach on this YouTube channel, that's sort of like comparing a mobile home to a custom house. They're both going to put a roof over your head, but one of them's you're going to be able to build it exactly how you need it, to your needs, your specifications, what loads you need to power. You're going to be able to charge it as fast as you want to power it or as slow as you want to power it, and you're going to be able to get as much power in or out of it as you need. So they're two totally different things. It's like comparing a race car to a daily commuter Honda Civic kind of thing. That's in short, that's the reason. I don't dislike them, but I do dislike them for permanently installed situation. We've got a little Jackery 500 or 300, I don't know what number it is, over in our shop that we use for, just tossing it in the Subaru and going tent camping or whatever. And I think it's great for that. But if it's something you need to rely on for power whenever you may be working remotely, if you lose power, you lose a client, you need to have a system you can trust. So that's that.
Yep. From Instagram, Grizz Flash, your question didn't come through all the way, so if you could maybe retype that out. It ended in a partial word, so we'll skip over that one. Zigzag asked, any chance we see a smart Buck Boost 2424 on the market in 2025? 12/24. I think that's supposed to be 20.
I feel pretty confident it'll be out in 2025. I've heard some pretty reliable reports that it'll be out by the end of 2024. But those reliable reports were also saying that we would have it out in 2021. So I'm personally not holding my breath. Once we see it available from Victron to order, we will be ordering a bunch of them, and we will make big social push. And
we'll send out an email blast.
Yeah,
so if you're not signed up for our newsletter, go ahead and get signed up for that as well.
And if you've purchased something from it, you're on our newsletter. If you purchased something from our store, you're on our newsletter too. So will it be out in 2024? They say it will. They also said it'd be out in 2021. Will it be out in 2025?
I hope so.
I hope so. I'm also waiting on it, guys. Our Transit still has like pretty underpowered DC to DC charging, which is why we had to use 2 of them.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yep, indeed. Okay. Stephen asked, should I bring my lithium batteries into my home, or are they okay outside in the cold if they're unhooked? Yeah,
so every battery manufacturer has their own recommendations. With Battleborn batteries in particular, just because I have it memorized, if you're not using your system and it's going to be freezing, just charge them to full and then turn your master disconnect switch off, so you don't have any power coming out of or into the batteries, and they'll sit like that for a long time. Battleborn recommends that you uninstall your batteries if the battery temperature is going to get something like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which, what is that? That's like negative, 30-ish Celsius. Mm-hmm. So super, super cold. And I think my viewpoint on that, because it does get that cold here where we are in northwestern Colorado, I'm going to keep a heater in my stored van because I don't want my cabinets getting to negative 20 and negative 30. Wood starts to crack at negative 20, negative 30. You get some pretty significant wear and tear by letting all of your interior build out get exposed to that kind of cold temperature. So that's like the long and short. If you've got different brand of batteries, just Google your battery name and then winterization, and hopefully your battery manufacturer's written a blog post or has some information about that. Otherwise, reach out to them and they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Yep. Cool. New York asked, can I use one Lynx distributor for 6 Battleborn batteries, or do I need 2?
So with Battleborn batteries, we only use one Lynx distributor in all of our wiring kits because we wire everything in parallel. So share my screen here, heading over to page 1 of our component wiring kits and our battery bank wiring kits here. So just opening those up. This is how we would recommend wiring batteries into a battery bank. There's about 4 different ways, 4 different sort of good ways that you can wire batteries. And this is the way that takes the least amount of space and the least amount of wiring. And when you have less wiring, you have less costs. And so this is the way that we landed on. And so when you do it like this, you land all of that onto your Lynx distributor as a singular battery bank through our Lynx distributor wiring kits, which are elsewhere. I'm not going to look for them. But all of the tutorials that we have on our YouTube channel show that method so far. So there's probably, let's call it 10 or 20 of them out there at this point.
Yep. And so that one wire from the battery bank, the one final wire going from the battery bank to the Lynx distributor, that would just be, your input rather than the output.
Here it was. It was on the next page. So Lynx distributor wiring kit right there. And the way I got to this was shop.explorers.live, menu bar, shop, wiring kits, component wiring kits. And so, you've got that battery bank and then positive from one end, negative from the other end, going to your singular Lynx distributor right there. Okay.
Awesome. Broken Spoke Adventures asked, I've seen that the isotherm 130 will not work with less than 8 gauge wire. If using the calculator, it says 14 gauge wire. Have you heard of this?
I have not heard of that. No, that's a weird deal. That doesn't make any sense electrically.
Okay.
For fridges, we use 10 gauge pretty much exclusively. But fridges are usually within I don't know, let's call it like 10 feet of the fuse block for the most part. That should handle plenty, unless the isotherm, which I didn't catch the model, but just has an obscene amount of like startup amperage. 10 gauge should be fine. Yeah. Maybe that's a sort of a leftover, like quote unquote problem from like AGM batteries that didn't have as high of a like resting voltage as lithium batteries. 'Cause lithium batteries are going to hang out at let's call it 13.3 to 13.7, until they get nearly empty. So where AGM batteries, their voltage may fall pretty low enough to where the fridge won't start. Maybe that's what that's talking about.
Yeah. And in general, if the manufacturer is recommending a wire size, you should always go with that over the calculator.
Usually, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and unless you have a good reason.
Yeah, and I would say the good reason there is going to be, if you're using one of our 12-volt fuse blocks, 8 gauge will fit into it.
Right.
So 10 gauge is the biggest wire size. So that I would consider that a decent reason, given electrically it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. I have a 300 amp hour battery bank, but would like to purchase a Victron MultiPlus 12-3000 for future battery expansion. If I keep my AC draw under 1000 watts, will this work until I upgrade the batteries?
Nope. You have to have a minimum. The inrush current of the MultiPlus on startup is going to shut down the BMS of 3 batteries. So basically, you could wire it all together, and then you'd basically just have a brick of a system until you have that 4th battery in place.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money to have a system that doesn't work.
Yeah. So those minimums are pretty important.
Colin asked, when installing a 24-volt system, do you think it's best to install 24-volt solar panels or 12-volt panels wired in series? And Ira did answer this, and Ira said, your solar arrays won't charge your 24-volt battery bank until the voltage is above about 30 volts. So getting the highest voltage possible is key for that battery bank voltage.
Yeah, exactly. And the panels sort of kind of don't matter to a degree. What matters is the overall solar array voltage. So, we've got several options. If you go to shop and then wiring kits and then solar array wiring kits, then we've got all kinds of pre-configured solar arrays. And there's like 6 pages, which seems kind of cumbersome. So Steph has made filters over here. So if you filter by your battery bank voltage, so 24 volt, then it's going to narrow down the options that you have available. So like total wattage of the entire solar array. And then you could even filter down, with what solar panel wattage you wanted, if you wanted to filter down that far. Or if you just wanted to kind of look through here for an 800 watt solar array, or 1,000 or 700 or 1,400 or whatever. We got all kinds of options there.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have a suggestion for a good automatic transfer switch for a 30 amp mobile system that isn't part of the inverter itself?
I think, was it Progressive Dynamics? I think they make I
think it's Progressive Dynamics, yes.
We don't have any in our store because we don't typically use them. But if you need one for some reason, I think it's Progressive Dynamics. They've got just Amazon, 30 amp RV transfer switch, and it's probably the first or second or third hit that shows up. So,
cool. Can you mix different amp hour batteries from the same vendor, say adding a 100 amp hour battery to an existing 300 amp hour battery? And Chad already answered this, that no, that's not recommended. But do you want to add anything to that?
As a blanket statement, I'd say no. I have seen some battery manufacturers that say that it's fine. So I would say, as a blanket statement, no, that's not okay. If your battery manufacturer explicitly says that, hey, this is fine, then sure. But proceed with caution if they say that.
Yes. Okay. Kevin asked, what recommendation do you have for a secondary alternator to handle the case when the load disconnects?
The load shouldn't disconnect. You shouldn't have that. That shouldn't be a problem. I know what you're talking about. And if your battery shuts down while your battery disconnects while your alternator's running, it could damage the alternator, but there's no reason that should happen with a properly designed system. So it's not really a thing to worry about, really.
Cool. Okay, from Instagram, Grizzflash asked, I have an Anchor 2000 and a Webasto. Anchor doesn't have enough DC amps for the Webasto to start up. We used an AC to DC converter plugged into the Anchor, which worked for a day, and then the converter burned out. Do we get a more powerful converter or a different battery?
I think this kind of runs into that situation we were talking about earlier with the portable power stations. You know, you run into limitations with portable power stations, and you either have to live with those limitations or you have to get a bigger, more powerful system, one that's got a little bit of, you know, being a little more customizable. You know, our systems that you can see on shop.explorers.life, what we teach on our YouTube channel, got to power a Webasto heater with zero problems. Electrically zero problems. So, yeah. So I wish I could be more help with that, but that's just a system limitation of those portable power units.
Yeah, I don't think another battery or a more powerful converter is the answer here. You know, you don't want to be burning up components, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, if the system isn't powerful enough to power the Webasto, then adding another battery to it isn't going to help.
It's just like throwing parts at a problem.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of just like coming up with a good design, you know, sort of like we teach on this channel. Yeah.
Okay. Jake asked 40-foot, I'm guessing travel trailer, running a residential fridge. I have 3 100 amp hour batteries that I'd like to have topped off when I arrive at the campground. Would a DC to DC charger or solar be an option? Any recommendations?
Both of those are options. Yep. You know, solar's still going to work while you're driving down the road. The sun doesn't quit shining just because you're driving down the road, which means those solar panels are just going to keep charging. So if you have a travel trailer, how long did you say? Like 40
foot?
Yeah.
You've got a lot of
fill that dude up with solar, and you're going to get more charging out of solar than you are going to out of alternator charging.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, yeah. And a 40-foot travel trailer, I mean, that might even have a built-in generator at that point. And so that's another option to run that generator, you know, if it's like a cloudy, rainy day or whatever while you're traveling. So, you know, but I mean, we got alternator charging options too. If you really want to have, you know, backups on backups on backups. But yeah, with a 40-foot travel trailer, fill that dude up with solar panels, and that's going to charge as you're going down the road, and it's going to have no problem topping off, you know, batteries.
Cool. Cam asked, I thought if you have more than 3 batteries, you want to run them to a bus bar for even/balance charging. And Ira did answer this and said, so long as the batteries are wired together, as we just showed, they will be balanced.
Yep.
Many server rack batteries recommend bus bars, but for 12 and 24 volt batteries, our method works well.
Yep, our method works great. There's like 4 methods that are approved by Victron in Victron's Wiring Unlimited version. Now they kind of rank them as in terms of like a good, better, best situation, but all of them are approved. All of them are good. Mm-hmm. You know, just because one is the best of the best of the best, you know, if it takes 3 times as much wire and 4 times as much time to wire it together for a 0.000001 increase in efficiency, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't matter. That's not that big a deal. So yeah, and you know, there's a lot of really bad information on Facebook too, and I've seen that argument in Facebook groups a lot. You know, they see this thing where it says, it's like, well, this is the best way. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that might be the best of the best way, but there's still 3 other ways that are perfectly wonderful, and it's going to work fine. Yep.
Perfect. Cool. Let's see. I think the rest of the questions have been answered by our team, but I'll just go ahead and read them.
Perfect.
I have a 2006 Dodge Dually and would like to add a DC to DC charger to charge my 400 amp hour batteries. My alternator is rated for 136 amps. Can I add the 50 amp Victron charger without danger of overheating? And Nicholas said that is perfect. Don't go over approximately 50% of the alternator's output rating.
Yep.
I'd agree with that.
Yep. So our Orion XS 50 amp DC to DC charger, given your house battery bank in your trailers, 12 volts, that's going to work wonderfully.
Yep.
Got them in stock, ready to ship.
Parker Romes asked, I'd like to have 2 switches for my water pump, one coming from the faucet and one for the back shower head. How would I wire them to the pump? My understanding is it's not just a simple red and black wire.
It's not. And we have...
Actually, yeah, Nicholas linked to the video
two-way switch
on
video.
3-way switches. Yeah, or 2-way switches.
3-way switches.
3-way, 12-volt, 3-way switches. Yeah,
Yep.
that's what it says. Sorry, I can't read.
Yeah, that's it. That's the video we have. It's a tutorial over how to do 2-way or 3-way switches. We did it with lights, but you can do it with anything with your water pump. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same.
Yep.
So, yep.
Yep. Awesome. The Vimo 2500 watt pure sine inverter has no ground lug. Our travel trailer has the negative running through the frame. 1, do I really need a ground? And 2, should I ground to the negative lug on the inverter or bus bar?
That's going to be a question for your inverter manufacturer. If it doesn't have a ground lug, that's super weird. Because in the case of an internal DC short, all that power is going to try to short to the case. Depending on how that inverter is set up, all that power is going to try to run through, the 10 gauge wire that's going to your breaker box or however you've got that wired, and that's going to turn into a little impromptu space heater. And, so, I'd reach out to your inverter manufacturer and see if they can provide any guidance on how you kind of combat that. So,
cool.
I will say not every manufacturer has a ground lug, and hopefully they've got a good reason to. But yeah, I can't say.
Okay, Project Trawler asked, I live on a 40-foot trawler with twin diesels. I have a third alternator dedicated to the house battery bank. Is it worth it to add a DC to DC from the engine alternators?
If you've already got an alternator going, maybe I'm not really understanding that because I'm fairly new to marine specific applications where you've got multiple engines and multiple alternators and stuff like that. But if you've already got alternator charging to your house battery, I would leave that in place. And given it's controlled by some kind of external voltage current regulator like wake speed or I think there's a new one, Atlas or something like that. I don't know. Atlas Titan? I don't know. Anyway, wake speed is the one that I'm probably most familiar with. As long as that's connected to it, then that's going to charge fine. I don't see the need to do multiple alternator charging. That'd just be a lot of power. Yeah. Multiple dedicated alternators. That's just an absolute ton of power, and it's probably overkill for 99% of situations, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I understand if you're living on that.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, true.
Okay. Plumbing question. I just bought a 24 RAM ProMaster 2500. Your plumbing setup is exactly how I want to do it. I was wondering if you can build me one like that and ship it as well, so I don't have to do my plumbing. And no, we don't do that. However, Featherbuilt does. And I believe Patrick was on earlier. Patrick from Featherbuilt was on the live earlier. If he's not still in here, if somebody on our team could drop a link to Featherbuilt. Mm-hmm. They have plumbing enclosures that they can pre-build for you, yep. Or that are just flat packed, easy to install. Yep, and
kind of what those are. That's a complement to our the electrical enclosures you have on our store. So, shop.explorers.life, menu bar, shop, electrical enclosures, and this electrical enclosure is pretty familiar to a 2021 video that we made. Teaches you how to make basically this enclosure. The we had so many requests for people wanting us to build this enclosure for them that we partnered up with. And we're not cabinet makers here at Explorers Life. We do our best, but I'm way too slow at it that I would have to charge $5,000 for just the wood alone if I was going to be paying myself minimum wage. So we partnered up with somebody who actually is good at this stuff, Featherbuilt. And they do all this. They do all the cabinetry. All this is CNC cut. And we got a couple different options for these cabinets, and this is the electrical one, but stick with me here. I'm not chasing a rabbit. These can be flat packed and shipped to you. We can build them in-house and then ship them to you, and you can install them, or we can do the whole thing, build it and install it, up in Oregon. But why I'm talking about this enclosure is there is a plumbing enclosure that is the same dimensions, so that when you look into the back of the van, it's going to look the same on both the passenger and the driver's side. The driver's side is going to be for the electrical system, and the passenger side is going to be for the plumbing system. And that is a Featherbuilt box. We have the electrical enclosure on our store for purchase, but Featherbuilt has the plumbing one in their store available for purchase.
And yep, Patrick is in the chat right now, and also Morgan just dropped the link to Featherbuilt. So
perfect.
We've got all of the resources there for you.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to go on that. And they've got a wall kit too. Like I don't know, I'm not trying to push Featherbuilt necessarily, but but this stuff is also built to work with their wall kit. So their wall kits utilize like a low profile unistrut kind of situation, pretty similar to how ours did with L-Track. And all of the mounting points on the back of this enclosure are designed to line up with their unistrut and their wall kits. And they've got these for sprinters, they've got these for transits, and I think they released these for ProMasters like within the last 2 or 3 days. I know I shared something on Instagram about it yesterday. So that's sort of like, the wall kit is, it's way less expensive than Adventure Wagon, which is what we were trying to emulate back in our transit van build. And if they would have had that wall kit whenever we were doing our transit van build, we would have done that for sure, because I think it would have ended up being about the same price. But would have
and way less time. Oh my goodness, way less time.
Patrick, I think you're in the chat at the moment. Just drop in the chat how long it takes you to install a wall kit, and then we'll just assume that it takes any of us untrained individuals, let's call it twice as long. Yeah. And I bet it's still going to be half as long as it took us to do walls. So
at least it took us so long to do walls, and there were 4 of us working on it.
And there's black eyes that happened.
It was lots of injuries, lots of blood, sweat, and tears went into those walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Simon asked, I have a 10K Quattro 120 volt and would like to have a split phase in my house. Is it more economical to get an auto transformer rather than another inverter?
Good question. So an auto transformer is going to do roughly the same thing as 2 inverters. So it's either way, just kind of whatever way that your plan dictates. In our systems that we have on our store at shop.explorers.life that are 10 kVA worth of inverting capacity with 120, 240 volt output, we use dual inverters or dual inverter chargers, so 2 5 kVA inverters, just because that's the most repeatable way for us to do things and to offer support on them. So yeah, we don't there's with these systems there's 50 ways to do them, and let's call 30 of them to do them correctly. And I think the way that you're talking about and the way that I'm talking about, they're both correct ways. They're just different ways, but I'm going to prefer 2 separate units.
Yep.
Because we have kits available for them, because we've already built them. Our event trailer has that system in it.
You get double the inverting power.
Yeah, you can, because when you're stacking those inverters, so if you have two 10 kVAs, if that's what you're talking about, if you're talking about adding a 10 kVA Quattro, then yeah, you're going to have twice as much power as opposed to a 10 kVA inverter plus a auto transformer. Yep.
Um,
I just see Patrick just tuned back in. He said that he can make the panels and rails in one day and then install them in 2 days. Can be done by a DIYer in a weekend. So let's say worst case scenario.
and Chad said it took us 1 million hours to do the walls, and I think he's right, actually.
Yeah,
like, give or take.
Because there was overtime for 4 people for like 2 weeks
Terrible.
in that thing. So I was really happy that we pay salary those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, Patrick said, a weekend. So worst case scenario, it takes you 2 weekends. You're still ahead of the game.
A weekend plus a couple of evenings. Like, yeah. Oh, that would be so nice.
Yep.
Anyway. Which one would you go for and why? Victron Chrono GX or the Serbo GX with a Touch 70?
So we actually have a video about that specifically. If you do a Google search or a YouTube search for Explorus Life Serbo versus eChrono, we're going to have a video that pops up that's going to be one of the first. I like the eChrono better than the Serbo, but wow, everybody in the comments section, I got freaking slammed on that video. Because I had a preference of the eChrono over that one. So everybody was saying that they didn't like the eChrono because you have to plug all of the data cables into the back of the eChrono, and they like the fact that they can put the Serbo in a more accessible place and then run an HDMI extension to the screen.
Ooh, but the HDMI extensions are prone to go out.
They are. And so there's a lot of people that like that version, but I think, in our experience, I would say it's, let's call it a 30% failure rate with HDMI extension cables. So,
yeah. So the people in the comments were the 70% that it worked for.
Yeah.
But,
so
maybe 5 years down the road, they'll be changing their tune.
Yeah. And I will say, like whenever we get somebody asking us tech support questions from, parts that they've purchased from our store, I always ask for pictures, specifically with that Serbo, because I want to see if there's an extension used. Because if there's an extension used, I would say, 90% of the time that is the problem. That extension is the case of the problem. And then somebody's like, well, I installed it 40 feet away. And I'm like, well, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't work most of the time, which is why it's, I think in the manual it's specifically called out that that's not approved. So, yeah. So.
Cool. It is 10 a.m. We've got 2 more questions to go.
Perfect.
So, we'll answer these last 2 questions and then we will wrap up for the weekend. Travis asked, what is the advantage of having 2 24-volt 3000 multi-plus inverters over just one?
Twice as much power. Twice as much power, or if you need 120, 240-volt loads, that's another kind of option that you have there. If you just need 120-volt output, there's really no reason to do multiple inverters, given that you need, less than, let's call it 5,000 or 5 kVA of inverting capacity. Because they've got that 120 volt, 5 kVA inverter charger or whatever the case is. That's the biggest single inverter system that we have on our site. So, I would say, double the power for double the inverters. Plus, you can create 240 volt for 240 volt loads from battery power. So that's kind of the considerations there. If you've got like that, shoot us a message at shop.explorers.life/support. We can get you pointed in the right direction. If you've got like specific needs or electrical demands or anything like that.
Yeah, cool. All right, last question. Is there any auto switch? Is there any auto switch to charge the battery from the generator instead of solar?
You don't need to do that. You don't need to have a switch. It's just going to happen automatically. If you're charging from solar and then you turn your generator on, then your generator is going to start charging. It just happens automatically within the Victron ecosystem. So, yep.
So the auto switch is built in.
Yeah, the auto switch it just works. Yeah.
Okay, that was the last question.
Awesome. So thanks everybody for tuning in today. Lots of really good questions. And we are going to be doing a live stream on Black Friday. It's not our standard first Friday of the month kind of thing. The Black Friday live stream is going to be a little bit different because we are going to be on most of the day. I think last year's Black Friday live stream, ended up like being 6 hours.
It was quite a bit.
We had some little mini lessons in it that we'll try to incorporate again this year, but also a big Q&A session and everything like that. We'll be sharing some Black Friday deals that we will be having, a teaser, and also some Black Friday deals at some of our various brand partners or just various Black Friday sales that we saw online that were cool. We'll be sharing some of those. So put it on your calendar. We're probably going to start pretty early. I think we told the team 7 a.m. on Black Friday, which is
7 a.m. Mountain Time.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. What day is is that the 29th? I think
Yes.
it's on the 29th.
I thought you were going to say what day of the week, and it is Friday because it is Black Friday.
The 29th of November, for all of you who are not in the U.S. That is our Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Everybody's off work. It should be a good time. So I think that is all. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Special thanks to all y'all for showing up and asking questions, as well as the Explore Us Live team for showing up, answering questions, helping out with the live stream. We will see you on Black Friday.
Yeah. Have a great weekend.